Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Let's do it.
Today's topic is something a lot of us struggle with, anxiety.
Yeah, anxiety is something that affects everyone in some way or another.
Definitely. And it can really hold you back if you let it.
Totally. It can stop you from doing the things that you want to do and really kind of take over your life.
Right. But it doesn't have to be that way. We're going to unpack anxiety,
Hmm.
figure out what's really going on, and most importantly, give you practical tips to manage it.
Yeah, because anxiety is manageable. It's not something you just have to live with.
Exactly. So where do we even start? When we say anxiety, what's actually happening in our minds and bodies?
Well, I think a good place to start is to think about anxiety as your body's alarm system.
Alarm system. Okay, I'm listening.
It's like this ancient mechanism, right?
Mm.
It's hardwired into us to help us survive danger.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. Like, imagine you're back in the Stone Age, you're walking through the woods, and suddenly, bam, a saber-toothed tiger jumps out.
Exactly. Your heart starts racing, your palms get sweaty. You feel this surge of energy.
Fight or flight. Right.
Exactly. That's your anxiety system kicking in, giving you that boost you need to either fight that tiger or run like crazy.
So, anxiety actually serves a purpose.
Absolutely. It's there to protect us.
Okay, that makes sense. But we don't really have saber-toothed tigers chasing us anymore, do we? I mean, unless you work at the zoo or something.
Right. But our brains haven't quite caught up to that. So now, instead of a tiger, it's that big presentation at work or that awkward social situation, or even just like a really long to-do list. Those things can trigger that same fight or flight response,
Yeah.
even though they're not actual life or death situations.
So our brains are basically stuck in the Stone Age, freaking out about things that aren't actually dangerous.
Well, kind of, yeah. Our nervous systems are still wired to respond to threats the way they did thousands of years ago.
Okay, so how do we update the system? How do we tell our brains to chill out because that deadline isn't going to eat us?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And the good news is that there are actually things you can do. One of the simplest and most effective is deep breathing.
Deep breathing, I've heard that before. But honestly, sometimes it feels a little too simple. Like, does it really work?
It really does, and it's not just some new agey thing. There's actually a lot of science behind it. You see, when we're anxious, our breathing tends to become shallow and rapid.
Yeah, you can practically hear your own heartbeat in your ears.
Exactly. And that kind of breathing actually signals to your nervous system that you're in danger, which just ramps up that anxiety even more.
It's like a vicious cycle.
Totally.
Right.
But here's where deep breathing comes in. When you consciously slow down your breath, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system.
Say that again? The para what?
The parasympathetic nervous system. It's basically the opposite of the fight or flight response. It's like hitting the relaxation button for your body.
Okay, so deep breathing is like telling our bodies that the saber-toothed tiger has gone away and we can relax now. I'm sold. But how do you actually do deep breathing? Is there like a right way to breathe?
There is. It's called diaphragmatic breathing, and it's all about using your diaphragm, the muscle that sits right below your lungs.
Diaphragm. Okay, that rings a bell. Vaguely.
It's basically the powerhouse of your breath.
Mm-hmm.
And when you engage it properly, you can really calm your whole system down.
Mm.
So instead of just breathing into your chest, think about breathing deep into your belly.
Like I'm inflating a balloon in my stomach.
Exactly. That's a great way to visualize it. So you inhale slowly and deeply through your nose, feeling your belly expand, like that balloon is filling up. Hold that breath for a few seconds.
Okay, holding.
And then exhale slowly and gently through your mouth, like you're letting the air out of the balloon little by little.
You through the nose, out through the mouth. Got it.
You got it. And try to make your exhales a little bit longer than your inhales. Like if you inhale for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6 or 8.
Okay, I can try that. 4 in, 6 out. It's actually kind of amazing how just changing the way I'm breathing can make a difference.
Right. It's like a secret superpower. And the best part is you can do it anytime, anywhere. Like if you're feeling anxious at work, just excuse yourself for a few minutes, go to the bathroom, and do a few rounds of deep breathing. Or if you're feeling overwhelmed at home, just step outside for a minute and breathe.
I love that. It's like a portable anxiety buster.
Totally. And the more you practice, the easier it gets. It becomes like second nature.
Okay, that's really good to know because I'm all about simple but effective. But what about those times when deep breathing just isn't cutting it? Like when your brain is just stuck in overdrive with worry.
Oh, I hear you. Deep breathing is great for calming your body down. But sometimes you need to address the thoughts that are fueling that anxiety in the first place. And that's where identifying your trigger thoughts comes in.
Trigger thoughts.
Yeah, basically those thoughts that automatically trigger feelings of anxiety, Like, what if I mess up this presentation? Or what if they don't like me? Those kinds of things.
Oh, I know those thoughts all too well. They love to pop up at the worst possible moments.
They do, don't they? They're like little anxiety gremlins whispering doubts and fears into your ear.
Okay, anxiety gremlins. I love it. So, how do we get rid of these gremlins? How do we shut them up?
Well, the first step is to actually become aware of them. Start paying attention to those thoughts that trigger your anxiety. Once you start to recognize them, you can start to challenge them.
Challenge them. How do we do that?
It's like putting those gremlins on trial. You want to examine the evidence. Ask yourself, is this thought really true? Is there another way to look at this situation?
So, let's say my anxiety gremlin is telling me, what if I totally bomb this job interview?
Okay, great example. So you want to challenge that thought. Ask yourself, what's the evidence that I'm going to bomb this interview? Have you prepared? Do you have the skills and experience they're looking for? And even if you do make a mistake, is it really the end of the world?
Okay, when you put it like that, it does seem a lot less scary.
Exactly. Most of the time, those anxiety-provoking thoughts are just thoughts. They're not facts. And once you start to see them for what they are, they lose a lot of their power over you.
So it's about learning to see those thoughts without judgment, without letting them completely take over.
Exactly. It's like watching clouds drift by. You notice them, you acknowledge them, but you don't have to grab onto them and let them carry you away.
I love that analogy. Okay, so we've talked about deep breathing and challenging our negative thoughts. Are there any other tools in the anxiety-busting toolkit?
Absolutely. Another great one is grounding techniques. Have you ever heard of those?
I have. Aren't those helpful for when you're really in the thick of it, like when you're having a panic attack?
Exactly. Grounding techniques are all about bringing your attention to the present moment, to your physical surroundings. Because when we're anxious, our minds tend to race ahead, worrying about the future or ruminating about the past.
Oh, yeah, my mind loves to do that. It's like it's constantly trying to predict every possible worst-case scenario.
And that's exhausting. Grounding techniques help to interrupt that cycle by bringing your attention back to the here and now.
Okay, so how do they work? What are some examples of grounding techniques?
Well, one simple but effective technique is called the 5-4-3-2-1 method.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
Yeah, so basically you're going to use your five senses to ground yourself in the present moment. Start by noticing five things you can see around you. Maybe it's a lamp, a picture on the wall, the pattern on the rug.
Okay, got it. 5 things I can see.
Then notice four things you can feel. Maybe it's the texture of your clothes, the coolness of the air on your skin, the weight of your feet on the floor.
Okay, I'm starting to feel more present already.
Then, three things you can hear, two things you can smell, and one thing you can taste.
So it's like you're taking a sensory inventory of your surroundings.
Exactly. And by doing that, you're shifting your attention away from your anxious thoughts and back to the present moment. And when you're grounded in the present moment, anxiety naturally starts to decrease.
It's like hitting the pause button on the anxiety spiral.
Exactly. And the great thing about grounding techniques is that they're super discreet. You can do them pretty much anywhere, anytime, without anyone even knowing.
So these grounding techniques sound super helpful for those moments when anxiety feels really intense. But what about the long game? How do we build that long-term resilience to anxiety so it doesn't feel like such a constant battle?
That's such a great question. And I think a big part of building resilience is learning to embrace uncertainty.
Embrace uncertainty. Wait, really? I feel like my anxiety is basically just me trying to avoid uncertainty at all costs.
Right. It's counterintuitive for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of us think that if we can just plan for every possibility, if we can just control every outcome, then we'll finally be free from anxiety.
Yeah, that sounds kind of familiar. Like, if I can just get this project done perfectly, then I can finally relax. But it never really works that way, does it?
It doesn't. Because the truth is, we can't control everything. Life is messy and unpredictable, and the more we resist that, the more we suffer.
Okay, so if trying to control everything just backfires, what's the alternative? How do we embrace uncertainty without freaking out?
Well, I think it starts with shifting our perspective. Instead of seeing uncertainty as something to be feared, what if we started to see it as something that's exciting?
Exciting. Okay, how do you figure?
Because uncertainty is where possibility lives. It's what makes life interesting and spontaneous. When we let go of the need to control everything, we open ourselves up to new experiences, new opportunities, new possibilities that we never could have imagined.
So it's kind of like choosing to be curious about the unknown instead of terrified of it.
Yes, it's about reframing uncertainty as an adventure rather than a threat. And that takes practice, of course, but it's so worth it.
Okay, I'm convinced. But how do we actually do that? How do we start to build that uncertainty muscle?
Well, I think self-care plays a huge role because when we're taking care of ourselves, when we're feeling grounded and nourished, we're much better equipped to handle whatever challenges life throws our way. It's like building up those resilience reserves.
Okay, so what kind of self-care are we talking about here? I feel like the term self-care gets thrown around a lot these days.
Yeah, for sure. And it can mean different things to different people, but ultimately it's about prioritizing your well-being mentally, emotionally, physically. It's about making choices that support your overall health and happiness.
So it's not just about face masks and bubble baths, although those are definitely nice too.
Right. It's about the bigger picture. Like,
Mhm.
are you getting enough sleep? Are
Mhm.
you eating nourishing foods? Are you
Yeah.
moving your body in ways that feel good? Are you taking breaks when you need them?
All those basic things that are so easy to let slide when you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed.
Exactly. And it's different for everyone, but some of my favorite self-care practices for managing anxiety include things like mindfulness meditation, spending time in nature, journaling, and listening to calming music.
It's about finding what works for you and making it a non-negotiable part of your routine.
Yes, exactly. Make it a priority because the more you invest in your own well-being, the more resilient you'll become to the inevitable ups and downs of life.
This has been so eye-opening. I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new perspective on anxiety and some really practical tools to manage it. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, everyone listening, you're not alone in this. Anxiety is a normal human experience, and there is so much support available. Don't be afraid to reach out if you need help.
Absolutely. And remember, even small steps can make a big difference. So pick one thing from this conversation that resonated with you and try it out. Whether it's deep breathing, challenging your negative thoughts, or simply being kinder to yourself.
It's about progress, not perfection. Every step you take towards understanding and managing your anxiety is a step toward a happier, healthier you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, to all of you listening, keep practicing those self-care rituals, keep challenging those anxiety gremlins, and keep embracing the beautiful uncertainty of life. Until next time, take care.